Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the North American Qualifier Tournament. Once again, I'm TJ Osmond Cutie Sanders. This time, I'm joined by Nathan. That's Admirable Zamora. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Great match that we just saw. Been watching the matches all week as well.
Yep.
I think we've had some great stuff. How are you doing? This is actually the first time we've got to cast together.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm excited. My beard's not quite as full as yours, but you know, I'm getting there as I get older. One day, I hope to be as beard-like as that's Admirable.
You might even say you're a Darnassus aspirant.
I am.
Yep.
That's exactly right. But you touched on it. We've seen some great matches this week, and some great matches continuing forward. This is the round of 40. Basically, the top 6 from here join the 2 from the Latin America region, and they'll go on to the regionals in San Francisco at the Folsom Street Foundry. So lots on the line for these guys.
Yeah, not only that, are they playing for that spot at the Americas Championship, but also $25,000 up for grabs at that event as well. So quite a bit of cash available to whoever's going to crown themselves a champion of that event.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys want to take a look at the bracket for the day, if you want to type in chat !bracket, you'll be given a link and you can head over there and see how everything's shaping out for the weekend. Also, if you have any predictions that you'd like to give moving forward for the weekend or for upcoming match, Trump versus Bloodyface, then you can use the hashtag #RoadToBlizzCon and let us know. Nathan and I will be jumping in on the conversations as well as the day moves forward to see your predictions and change ours based on who's winning.
Yeah, you can tweet at ESL Hearthstone with that. My prediction actually for last match, earlier this year, I had predicted that Zalay was going to be the world champion.
Oh, wow.
One less match for him now at this point. He just lost 3-0 to Purple.
Yeah, so he's got to make his way up to that lower bracket, not really utilizing the advantage he got for being the #1 seed of points quite as well as he probably would have hoped, but definitely still a lot of chance for him to move forward. But we can talk about the next match in just a moment. We do want to give you guys a quick reminder, though. We are still doing the Amazon, not giveaway, but promotion. If you guys buy Amazon coins to buy Hearthstone packs, you can get some Amazon coins back on your purchase to buy even more Hearthstone packs.
Yeah, I actually think the deal is it's 87 packs for $90. I mean, that's just
pretty good.
That's just over $1 a pack. You're not gonna beat that deal with a stick.
Yeah, definitely not. If you guys want to round out your TGT deck list, then make sure you head on over to Amazon.com/Hearthstone if you guys want to get in on that Amazon coin action. But now we can move into the next match. It's going to be Trump versus Bloodyface.
Yeah, this is one I'm really looking forward to a lot. Trump, I think, a great improvement for him over the last year or so. Last year he didn't find himself at this stage of the tournament. This year he was coming in one of the favorites.
Yeah, for sure. Trump, this is one of those years where he just went all in on tournaments. I mean, he was known in the past for being an arena player who dabbled into tournaments when they were important, but this year he's been going full on. He's got a couple of tournament victories under his belt, plus a couple of top 100 legend finishes as well. Now, Bloodyface, you were talking to me about Bloodyface earlier. Where's he come from?
Well, this guy is, this is kind of the story of the established professional versus kind of the up-and-comer guys. Mostly just kind of a ranked play warrior. 4 top 50 finishes this year. #3 has been his best one so far.
Wow.
But that's a pretty good performance, I'd say, for a guy who we really haven't heard much from otherwise.
Yeah, so far throughout the tournament, he's beaten a couple of other really big ladder players in Allendang and Waterloo. So that was earlier on the round of 64 and the round of 32 for that upper part of the bracket. So he hasn't been tested by one of those big dogs like Trump.
Yeah, but see, this is an opportunity for him, and I think this is a great time for this to be the position. Take a look at the lineups. Very similar lineups as well. Bloodyface is running with Patron Warrior. See, Trump is not running with Patron Warrior. We'll get to that in a second, but this is one of those spots where I look at it more of an opportunity for him. The fact that he is a relative unknown versus Trump, who you can easily go find videos on this guy and how he plays. That's some information he could use to his advantage.
Exactly. The informational advantage is definitely in Bloodyface's favor. Also, I mean, he's found himself in a good spot. All the players that we're going to see play today are in just about the best possible position they could be at this stage in the top 40. They haven't lost one. It's either the top 8 that have been seeded or the players that won all of their matches so far moving into the round of 16.
Yeah, it's so fantastic spots for them. Even if you end up dropping a match, just second chances at that point, just another life.
Double elimination is the name of the game here for some of these players. Zalay we saw last time. He's probably happy about that. But again, players like Bloodyface really just want to sort of dominate the bracket just so they can show that they made a name for themselves.
Yeah, anytime you're going to win any sort of event, ideally you want to be the guy who is in #1. #2, it feels good, especially if you're moving through, but #1 spot, that's the one you're gunning for. That's the one you really, really want to have. And just taking a look at these opening hands here, it looks like Bloodyface, he's going to start with Patron Warrior. Not a big surprise, but Trump, Patron Warrior's not in his lineup, and I actually find this pretty interesting.
Yeah, Trump has done some practice on Patron Warrior in the past, but I guess thinking that it's he's stronger on these other decks, more practice on these other decks at the moment. Bloodyface, I've noticed a trend between large-scale competitive tournaments, like the Road to BlizzCon, as opposed to players who participate in smaller tournaments. If you play in open tournaments, pretty much every player will open with Patron Warrior.
Yeah, Patron
Which is crazy.
It's just one of those decks that's so strong, and if you're going to be one of the ladder players, this is definitely going to be one of your go-tos. It's a very consistent deck, very powerful, able to pick up a lot of wins. And, not a surprise to kind of see these lesser-known guys playing these powerful decks like this and kind of throwing a little bit more caution to the wind. You take a look at Trump's lineup, for instance. Again, Druid, mid-range Hunter, and a Demon Handlock. His build is pretty much meant to target something like Grim Patron Warrior, and I think this is a very smart move from Trump as well. But you take a look at all the ladder guys. I feel like this just has to be part of their lineup simply because do they have the range of decks able to play outside of that? Do they feel confident targeting that from everybody else? Because they've had to have played this mirror a lot.
Yeah, I like that point that you made, that Trump is looking like his decks are sort of targeting at Patron Warrior. Because if you look at it, all of his decks have a positive win rate against Patron Warrior the majority of the time. You can even tell with this mid-range Druid, he has Ancient of War thrown in there, which is a fantastic card against Patron, because it's really tough to get through with 10 health.
Yeah, typically some of these Warrior decks, you take a look at 6-7 months ago, executes, shield slams, big game hunters, lots of different ways to take care of minions. But with Patron Warrior, they rely largely on just the weapons and the couple of executes they have to really make those big pushes. So if you're able to kind of attrition them down a little bit and then stick one big threat to the board like Ancient of War, it can be very difficult for them to push through.
That's very true. You can see Trump right off the bat, he missed the Wild Growth / Darnassus Aspired early on in the game, which is not what you want to see, but he does curve out pretty nicely from there on out with the Shade and the Powder Shredder.
Yeah, I mean, ideally you want to be ramping up your mana in the early game with this deck.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of cards dedicated to making sure that happens, but even if you don't, sometimes you can just draw a strong curve like this one. Still got Shade and Axramas, still got Piloted Shredder. If he picks up a 5-drop, it's going to be looking really strong.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of players consider Druid to be favored in this matchup, is because they can apply so much pressure in the early game that it forces Patron Warrior players to be pretty liberal with their removal spells and their combo spells, that later on in the game their combos are delayed, and by that time the Druid player probably is drawn into combo and has enough pressure to close out the match.
Yeah, and this is kind of the exact situation that you're talking about too, is Bloodyface knows that Trump's going to want to have to push this action at some point. So rather than hold this Frothing Berserker forever to look for big damage, he wants to get something on the board now and make sure that he can be the one driving the action instead of Trump. I love this move from Bloodyface.
Yeah, dictating the pace of the game, if you're the Patron Warrior in this matchup, is usually the right way to play it, unless the Druid just misses on all their early stuff.
Yeah.
But then it wouldn't matter anyway. You play the Frothing Berserker, he doesn't have an answer to it. You just push through with damage anyway. So
yeah, if your opponent isn't playing cards, you are going to win the game regardless.
Yeah. That is very true, very true. We can say Bloodyface actually does have some good tools here. He's got Despite on 4 into Patron, and he does have Whirlwind, so he can propagate Patrons. Plus the Inner Rage. That's the ultimate turn 5 combo, is Despite on 4, Patron on 5 with Inner Rage and the second Despite swing.
Yeah, things are starting to look like it could get a little bit dangerous for Trump if, saying, a strong Piloted Shredder drop doesn't happen here. This Despite really, really driving the action for Bloodyface, and this drop is so important right now.
What's it going to be?
Okay.
Lore Walker Cho!
Yeah, I can tell you Lore Walker Cho is not what Trump wanted. Anytime you get a 0 power minion out of this, not exactly what you're going to aim for. You can see it in his face and his reaction.
Wow.
You can tell he feels uncomfortable in this spot, and I can't blame him.
Yeah, this makes it a little bit tough for both players, though. Lore Walker Cho is one of those cards when it comes out of a Shredder that both players have to sort of play really carefully and think, how can my spells be used against me if I give them to my opponent? And you can tell right away Bloodyface really respects it. He says, next turn, I'm planning on using some spells.
Yeah, I was just about to mention how big of a game-changing card that Lore Walker Cho can be, but I can tell you what, that Harrison Jones that Trump just picked up, that is a game-changing card right now. He's going to be able to take away that Despite from Bloodyface, take away that Whirlwind he'd have on his time, draw a card, and get a 5/3 body.
Yeah, definitely huge. And that's the difference between Bloodyface potentially blowing out the game next turn with 4 Patrons being played onto the board into, well, maybe he can delay it 1 turn and use a Whirlwind to do the same effect. So it is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, this is exactly, I think this actually might have been the card Trump was looking for right now.
Yeah.
but always going to be mindful, loves to take his time and think through all the possibilities.
Yeah, he's sort of thinking of, well, if I play the Harrison Jones this turn, what is Bloodyface going to do the next turn? Is this Deathbite the important one that I need to get rid of? And I mean, I think it is, because you're really scared of those turn 5 situations.
Yeah, he is going to go ahead and trade into Shade 2. I like this. Make sure that Brawling Berserker doesn't get out of control. Is going to lose his Lore Walker Cho, though.
Yeah. Whew. I'm sure he's really disappointed about that.
Yeah, reeling in pain from it.
Yeah. Well, picks up the Warsong Commander there. That's going to be good later on in the game, but right now, I guess just fire War Axe and take it down. I mean, you don't really have too many options here. Putting 2 pages on the board, not that strong of a play.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, some players might be tempted to go for a 3-3 and a 3-2 here, but you really want to make sure you get a big combo with this. So Bloodyface just going to have to bide his time. We'll have to suffer some damage from this from the Fiery War Axe, but you know, he does get a minion on board. He's looking at maybe getting a big Battle Rage coming up in a couple turns.
Yeah.
You know, Trump's got to have some strong turns here, or this every single time he doesn't, Bloodyface has an opportunity to run away with the game.
Yeah. Now, this is a little bit problematic with the Emperor Thorsan, but, I mean, Bloodyface does have ways to deal with it. The residual damage from just the Whirlwind combined with his weapon and an Armorsmith will allow him to take it out, but you're always worried because that's 6 cards reduced in Trump's hand right there. Can sometimes be a pretty big deal, especially if you're the patron player. Will he have the means to deal with patrons, though, if Bloodyface goes for it this turn?
That's really what I'm looking at right now. I think that this really is a patron turn from Bloodyface. I think it's just too fantastic to make 14 power, take out your opponent's Emperor Thorsan, and be the one posing a threat. Druid doesn't handle this kind of pressure too terribly well. I mean, one of the ways it falls behind is your opponent just has too many minions out.
Yeah.
And then the threat of the fact that they can keep multiplying, that's a very dangerous thing for Trump at this point. And this is really where the Ancient of War plays such a big effect. If Bloodyface doesn't have an execute, he's going to be very liable to have to just use his Grim Patrons to take care of it.
Yeah, which is never something that you want to have to do. And you mentioned the Ancient of War. Druids tend to just have spot removal. Swipe is really not that great of a card against Patron unless they're all at 1 health. Like that's pretty much it, because you're pretty much going to propagate as many patrons as you're going to get rid of. So usually the best way to deal with it is by just putting up a big wall or playing like double Wrath, then a Keeper, and then a Hero Power to get rid of them all, which is a lot of resources to remove essentially what was like 2 cards.
Yeah, so Trump's actually going to make a little bit of an alternative play here. Can't say I blame him. I think that execute certainly is on his mind. If he's going to get executed, would like to have a slightly smaller minion happen to. But look at what this Emperor is unlocking in terms of potential. He's able to play multiple minions this turn, along with that Wrath. I mean, this is a very easy recovery scenario for him if Bloodyface really doesn't draw some major cards with this Battle Rage.
Yeah, Trump definitely respecting the cards like you mentioned, the execute, going with the charge Druid of the Claw just to proactively remove one of those patrons.
Really like this play from Trump too. Very heads-up play. This will prevent something like Whirlwind from getting out of control. You know, ideally you'd like to deal with the minions now, and not only that, but this also takes away that execute option from Bloodyface. So very heads-up play from Trump in this spot.
Yeah, so now Bloodyface, he's starting to run out of resources here, but he does have some card draw. Battle Rage would get him 2. He can be a little bit conservative with it if he thinks that 2 is not quite enough for what his hand offers him right now. But he realizes that he doesn't really have too many options going on.
Yeah, that's really the big difference, I think, here is the amount of options he's got versus the options he's going to need to win this game. This is the very scary part against Druid, is when they get to these 7 and 8 plus mana turns, it's constant major threat after major threat. And that's a problem for this deck because it's looking to deliver one big burst, or it's looking to use Grim Patrons to run over lots of small minions and create such a big board presence that you just can't deal with it. He doesn't have either of those options right now, so time is kind of running out.
Yeah, later in the game, you're drawing cards like Slam and Whirlwind, where the Druid's drawing cards like Druid of the Claw, Dr. Boom, Ancient of War, Ancient of Lore. So when you put it side by side like that, it really lets you know the power discrepancy and why the Patron Warrior relies so much on getting those big combos out and forcing the Druid to have to deal with it in inefficient ways.
Yeah, but this is the kind of turn where Trump has really got to be loving his position. I think that with that Despite out, is going to be taking out that Grim Patron, but, you know, I mean, once he's past that, he's really past the big hump. It's been kind of clear that Bloodyface just doesn't have a lot going for him right now with the way this hand has been played. So I think Trump's just in fantastic shape. Maybe he doesn't even have to take out this Grim Patron because he has the Ancient of War to back behind this.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's just going to play the big game hunter out as a tempo play here. Really, most of the time, no targets in Patron Warrior for the BGH, unless a Frothing Berserker gets out of control or a Patron Warrior player decides to sneak in a Dr. Boom, which is pretty rare.
Yeah, that was very early on in the first couple versions of the decks. Yeah. Dr. Boom was definitely in there, but since then the deck has become so refined and so tuned to this point where it's functioning more like a machine now.
Yeah.
And so because of that, Trump is going to know what Bloodyface is playing. Now, the downside of this is he is risking execute, and Bloodyface has had a couple extra turns to draw it, so doesn't have it right now.
Ooh.
Well, sometimes a single draw is going to change the game.
Yeah, he actually had multiple draws this turn. Like, he could have played the Acolyte and then Battle Rage for like 3 cards, still had a mana left over, but picks it up on the first draw, and now he's going to be able to start building some patrons. And now, we said it was starting to get scary for Bloodyface because he was going to start staring down big drops, but now he's got a reasonable board of his own.
Yeah, the big thing that's scary here, too, is the fact that he's reloading his hand with his Battle Rage. That he's getting 3 more cards here. Oh, and that Inner Rage, so important. Because here's the thing, Trump could have actually dealt with this assault with that swipe. Now he doesn't have that option. If he swipes that 3/3, he's going to be leaving behind a 5/1 and a fresh Grim Patron.
The difference between 2 and 3 patrons is enormous.
But look at that draw.
The Savage Combatant.
Wow, that is
that
perfect timing right now.
Yeah. I talked a little bit earlier about sort of the evolution of mid-range Druid, where players, before TGT came out, said, oh, the only card that's going to change is Darnassus Aspirant. But Savage Combatant has really found its way into a lot of mid-range Druid decks.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by this card. I thought that being at 5/4 might be a little bit too weak to Pilot Shredder. But really what this is it's kind of like, it's more like a 6-mana minion that gives you a claw when it happens. And so that +2 attack and that plus, you don't get the extra armor, but the +2 attack makes a big difference. I mean, look at this board state because of this card. Not only is Trump being able to handle the Grim Patrons, but now he's also just ahead.
Yeah, it's sort of similar in use to like a Fire Elemental or a Blackwing Corruptor because of the way that it's like a reasonable body, but it deals that 3 damage.
Yeah.
You do have to take a little damage from your face usually, but still, it definitely, I like how it's found its way into a lot of these Druid decks.
Yeah, totally worth it. And Bloodyface still handful of options, lots of ways to draw cards in this deck. That's basically what this build is all about. But now at this point, he's used some Grim Patrons. He's used a Frothing Berserker. He has used a lot of his Whirlwind effects. One of his Executes is gone. Both of his Death Spites are gone. He's kind of running out of utility.
So he really has to plan ahead now. He has to realize, well, what's my win condition from this point out? I'm probably not going to get ahead by just building a huge board because I don't have any more patrons. So I have to sort of try and combo him out with this last Frothy Berserker that I have. And so really the name of the game is just to get through as much of his deck as possible before Trump's able to get a big enough board to close out the game with like a combo.
Yeah, you can tell Trump is getting a little bit nervous by this, though. Yeah. Every single time this deck continues to just draw cards and draw cards. I mean, look at that deck size. There's only 7, 8 cards maybe left in that entire deck.
Yeah.
Once he gets down to those last few, it's going to be lights out for Trump because this deck can put together that damage very quickly.
Yeah, it's sort of a good side and a bad side. The good side is that you know what those cards are because the deck is so refined. The bad news is you know what they are, but sometimes you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, just because you know what they are doesn't necessarily make them easier to play against.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just don't see Trump as really having the options. It's going to be Dr. Boom and hope at this point.
Yeah. So Darnassus Aspirant at this stage of the game is really just a 2/3. The Battle Cry and Death Rattle effect don't do anything. Decided not to give like an excess mana for that ramp effect, but still, I mean, it's a body.
Yeah, and so this is the kind of position we were talking about. Bloodyface.
Oh, he does have a patron left.
He does have a lot of the strong cards, but really low on utility. Outside of this one unstable ghoul, that's really all he's got. So if he doesn't get massive use out of this, that's really where things could completely turn around. These Boombot hits are important too. These could easily muck up this board. Instead, they're going to the Dome.
Okay. You probably want that to hit 1 on the Acolyte of Pain would have been ideal, but face damage is probably better than at least killing off one of his patrons.
Oh, wow, and it multiplies one of the patrons too.
And he's going to be able to not only gain armor, but draw cards and get more patrons with the Unstable Ghouls.
Everyone is getting in here right now.
Yeah, this is... And you're Trump sitting there like, oh, man. Just watching this happen, watching this game slip from your hands.
Yeah, I'm only going to get 2 Grim Patrons out of this. His board is going to be too full. Oh, no. He's already got 7 minions.
Yeah. Just patron problems. Yeah, and I mean, he's getting even close to just sort of pushing in enough damage here. He's going to apply a lot of pressure, and He sequences this pretty nicely to be left with a full board at the end of it.
Yeah, not only that, but he's at a comfortable 28 life total, so Force Nature Savage Roar not even a big threat at this point, and that's going to do it. Trump's going to scoop this game number 1, but I think he's got plenty of information on exactly what's in this build at this point. But Bloodyface making full use of all of his card draw that game, finding all the answers he needs and all the right pressure as well.
Yeah, and as we mentioned earlier, the Patron Warrior was probably the deck that he was going to have the most trouble finding a win with. I mean, you come into this thinking, oh, Patron's widely considered the strongest competitive deck right now, but looking at Trump's lineup, it really felt like Trump was going after Patron. So Bloodyface picking up that first win with the deck that's probably one of the weakest as far as the lineup matchup goes, got to feel really good.
Well, the other thing you have to consider, too, is how much practice that Bloodyface is likely to have on a build like this.
Yeah.
You know, again, these ladder guys, they've been playing a ton of this deck, undoubtedly so. It's just one of the best ones out there. You got to play a lot of the mirror matches. It's just so powerful. It's difficult to not pick when you're playing in that situation. So the fact that we could see him navigate through those scenarios, really know what to do at every step of the way, not a big surprise.
Yeah, definitely. And Trump now has to go back to the drawing board. Does he throw out the Druid again? Does he switch up another deck? So we look at Bloodyface's lineup. He's got Druid and Warlock remaining for himself as well. So what do they go with? Bloodyface, we're not quite sure what this Warlock deck is yet. Trump, Demon Handlock.
Yeah, we know that Trump's is the Demon Handlock version. Bloodyface also is a Demon Handlock.
Okay, so we do know. Okay.
Yeah. Now, what we don't know is specific tech cards that they're going to have in there. You know, they're going to have a Ooze. Are they going to have multiple copies of Hellfire? We don't know exactly how the builds are tuned. So from Trump's spot, I feel like this is a really safe time to queue up your Hunter deck. Maybe Trump doesn't have that information, though. We do. But, you know, we've been paying attention to these guys for the last 6 days very closely, seeing how they're winning.
Yeah.
But, you know, for Trump, I imagine practice has been on there. He's been having to stream a lot. Certain is going to want rest for this event as well. You know, he maybe doesn't know these lists inside and out.
Yeah, Trump was the 8th and final player to get that seed into the round of 16 winners bracket.
Yeah.
So he came in at number 8 with 161 points. So he definitely was rewarded for his tournament finishes and his couple of high ladder finishes to make it to get to the buy point for the top 40 here.
So this is interesting. Trump is going to go with his Hunter, but take a look at that card on the left, TJ.
That's a flare.
Yeah, Secrets Paladin has kind of been an up-and-coming deck since TGT came out. You know, that mysterious challenger, he's got some mysterious ways to work.
Yeah.
The player can reveal all of his little secrets.
I actually played, right before we went live, I played one game of Secret Paladin over behind the set, and I feel really bad for the guy that had to play against me before I cast. I'm not going to call him out, but it's a really fun deck to play, and it's really powerful, and that's why Trump is throwing in tech cards to play against it.
Yeah, anytime that you can knock out 5 secrets maybe and draw a card, that's a pretty good 2-mana deal. But I imagine this hand's going to get pitched back. He's going to be looking for some more early game to really get the ball rolling. And speaking of early game, Bloodyface has got no shortage of it.
Yeah, he does have the Darnassus Aspirant. If there's no way to deal with this for Trump on turn 2, he's going to be able to curve right into a Shaded Naxxramas.
He even picks up a Wild Growth to go with it. He's got a lot of ramp options. And so for Bloodyface at this point, I would like to see the Aspirant here. You know, Trump is going to have Quick Shot some percentage of the time, but I think you're totally okay with that.
Yeah, and if he removes the Aspirant, you just play Wild Growth on turn 2. If he doesn't, you just keep going with the Shaded Naxxramas. I mean, you even have that pocket option of just saying, well, I want to ramp even faster, so let me play the Wild Growth anyway. But
yeah, really everything on Bloodyface's side of the board so far this game. Now, this is the early stages, though, so there's still plenty of time left for Trump to really make some use of this. And Mad Scientist, I don't think is a bad pickup, but he's going to need to be able to fight against this. And Bloodyface, the ramp continues to come, but now at this point, we're seeing the opposite side of things. You know, you get too much ramp, suddenly you don't have much to do.
Exactly. You get a hand with double Wild Growth, double Innervate. I mean, yeah, you can have 4 mana on turn 2, but what are you going to do with it? It's like the Astral Communion. Is that the card name?
Yeah.
Where 4 mana, you ramp up to 10 mana, but you discard your whole hand. A double Innervate Wild Growth is basically nearly the same thing, but weaker. So, yeah, he doesn't really have many big creatures beyond these ramp tools early on.
But that's the power of Druid, though, is it's got such a high amount of these big threats in the deck. You know, every single draw, you're pretty likely to draw one, and just 1 or 2 of them will change the game.
Yeah. Bloodyface really thinking about planning his turn ahead. He's saying, well, if I play Shade here, what am I doing the next couple turns? Am I ever going to find a time to play Wild Growth to ramp up besides right now?
You know, that's a really big question, honestly. And it looks like he's going to be very worried about Trump being able to stick threats on the board. He's going for the silence.
Wow.
On this Haunted Creeper, just going to run it over. Very interesting use of the Innervate, but again, I think a lot of that is because he doesn't have those major threats right now in his hand. He's not going to rely on drawing him. He wants to make the best use of what he's got right now.
Yeah, and making sure that he holds on to board control. He does float a mana with the Innervate, but realizes that it's worth it in order to just get stuff on the board. He realizes once again, if the Aspirant's killed, he has multiple options. He can play Shade no matter what, and if it's not killed, then he can always like play Wild Growth and Hero Power to try and ramp a little bit further. A lot of it also depends on what he's going to draw next.
Yeah, this is kind of also the situation that if you're Trump, you really don't want to be in, which is the playing defense with an aggressive deck build. I mean, Eaglehorn Bow does a great job at taking out key minions. The problem with that is when you don't have any minions out yourself, you're not actually getting any damage in. And so because of this, Trump is going to start falling behind a little bit, and that's such a dangerous spot to be in against Druid. Because Druid is one of those decks that doesn't do very well at recovering from very far behind, but when it gets ahead, it can maximally punish you for it.
Yeah, games tend to be polar opposites a lot of times in Druid. Sometimes Druid will miss their early drops, and the Hunter just runs away with the game. Because it's so hard for them to come back, is even against smaller creatures. Like if there's a board with a Leok, a Mad Scientist, and a Haunted Creeper, and you're the Druid with nothing, that board looks nearly impossible to deal with unless you have like perfect cards like a Wrath and then a Swipe. So yeah, it's definitely looking good for Bloodyface right now. Doesn't really pick up anything as far as threats go, like a Paladin Shredder or a Savage Combatant for this turn, but he does have options.
Yeah, I think taking out this Leok is something that's really going to be on his menu, considering how he reacted to that Haunted Creeper. I think it's extremely likely he's going to continue that trend, especially when you're looking at he's got Azure Drake into Force of Nature. He's going to be able to keep a pretty strict control over this board. But it looks like he's going to be opting for Wild Growth this turn instead. I mean, I got to believe you're Hero Powering here instead of Wrathing. And then there's nothing left to Wrath, so why not Wild Growth?
Yeah. And, I mean, this is not really setting up for anything. It's just for the future, just to get closer to being able to close out. Like, say he draws into a Savage Roid in his next couple turns. That makes his Force of Nature Savage Roar one turn earlier, which could be a big deal because he already has control of the board. He's already put at least some damage onto Trump, down to 24, so could be a big deal in the long run.
Yeah, that Wild Growth really just gonna help him play out his bigger curve. You know, if he draws the 6 drops, if he draws the 7 drops, he would have regret not doing so. So I can't blame him for using that Wild Growth right now. And Trump, meanwhile, looks like he's going to do a little bit more board control himself. Unleash the Hounds, not the greatest card in this matchup. So once again, players trying to make use of the tools they've got. And now he's the one with a slight advantage. He gets a Mad Scientist on board. And this is all about Bloodyface's draws at this point. If he picks up the right ones, it's going to look very dangerous for Trump. But in the meantime, Trump's, he's in a similar position. He's got Savannah Hyman and Lotheb in his hand.
Yeah. Usually you want that as the 1-2 punch combo, the Lotheb on 5 into the Savannah Hyman on 6, which is one of the hardest combination of 2 cards on turn 5, turn 6 in the game. So he did have to play a little bit more defensively with the Unleash the Hounds, and it is going to be delayed a little bit. But Savannah Hyman, even by itself, is one of the most powerful cards. So
draws are getting good for both players, though. This is one of those spots. Yeah, this is one of those spots where the game can really go either way. And it's going to hinge just on a couple of small maneuvers for each player and maybe a couple of draws here and there. But a lot of tension being built at every step of the way. Players having to use cards, not necessarily in the ideal fashion. And that's created this wonderful, interesting game for us. And now a second Wrath picked up, even more options for Bloodyface at this point.
Yeah. Now this is slightly in a slightly awkward situation because there's not really clean ways to do this. So you can swipe the Savannah Hyman, which takes out with the spell power takes out the Mad Scientist as well, and then Wrath down one of the hyenas that comes out of it, and then maybe proc the Freezing Trap or whatever trap comes out with the Azure Drake. But that feels a little weird, and it looks like he is going to opt to go for the damage first, but with that attack, it looks like that is going to be the play. Telegraph.
Yep. The swipe, I think, is just, it's a little too clean not to do. And this also is putting Trump at a pretty uncomfortable life total. As Bloodyface rolls into that dangerous 9-mana turn, Druid always has the threat of Force Nature and Savage Roar, that 14 damage burst. So in this spot, getting in the 4 damage, I think, is super important here. And even using the Wrath, love that he's using the Wrath right here. No reason to hang on to these. You're just trying to pull anything you can off the board and put that little extra pressure down. So a lot of this is going to hinge on what trap this is from Trump. I imagine it's a Freezing Trap.
Yeah.
But we did see a snake trap in his opening hand as well.
That's very true. There was a snake trap, so that could be a possibility. Bloodyface also can take solace in the fact that he has Force of Nature, which is one of the best tools to use to proc a freezing trap, like next turn, because the trinket goes back to your hand. You can charge it out again at your leisure. Use it as a little bit of an extra damage with a Savage Roar by itself later on in the game. So, but Bloodyface has to be a little bit wary about what trap this is going to be.
It's the Druid version of Flare.
Yeah,
It'll just cost 6 mana and doesn't draw you a card. Is all.
Oh wow, we just got word that it is a snake trap. So it's not the freezing that we
and that's I mean that's definitely the reason he's using Kill Command here, because again, that card is not really dedicated to killing minions. In a pinch it can, but you really want that to be a reach. Your opponent kind of unexpected damage from that card, being able to finish them off. That's really one of the big powers of that. So to see him have to use it on an Azure Drake, you know, that's kind of just a free card for Bloodyface. He already picked up a card off the Azure Drake, got use out of its extra ability, and now Trump's down a Kill Command.
Yeah, now this is a tough situation for the Druid. You sort of think, do I want to be proactive and make sure that I'm going in on an empty board, on a clear board? Or do I want to sort of sit back, play an Ancient of War, draw more cards, but sort of give the Hunter the initiative?
Yeah, he is just going to give up initiative, and wow, back-to-back Kill Command turns possible from Trump. And I have to think that with that Lotheb in the hand, this is really the direction you take. This is how Trump is going to win this game, is on the back of this Lotheb, hitting a couple times, and Bloodyface just really not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah, because right now, all you can do if you're Bloodyface is play creatures. And do you have powerful enough creatures to contest this board?
And that's exactly the point. Are they powerful enough? He's definitely got some good minions in his hand, but he's not the one on the offensive right now. He's on defense, and that Pilot Shredder does not do a good job on defense.
Yeah, he sort of flipped the switch. Earlier in the game, he was playing very proactively, making sure that he controlled the board because he was playing to his hand. Now he's in a situation where the Hunter is out of cards. So basically what he has to do is just try and stabilize at all costs.
Ooh.
Yikes.
That actually is almost a perfect pickup from Trump, too, because this is going to allow him to use on this web spinner if he wants. Couple that with the Eagle Horn Bow. It looks like he's got different ideas in mind, though, which actually I don't mind this either, because he's got the snake trap down, forcing your opponent to attack into and proc that snake trap. That may be another way to push through some extra damage. Yeah,
the only thing that this does is it plays a little bit more into swipe, just because you're putting more damage onto the Lotheb you're on your own instead of like forcing your opponent to do it. But, I mean, the Pilot Shredder probably would have gone into it anyway, since you'd be trading in the web spinner as well. But at the end of the day, most likely it would have been the same outcome. I think Trump, what he really wanted to do was just see what he'd get from that web spinner before he used the Houndmaster on it.
That's exactly what I think, too. And the other thing, too, I think he's trying to figure out a way to not go below 15, so he doesn't die to Force Nature Savage Roar. And I think he may have just concluded there's just not a way to do that, so he's just got to hope he doesn't have it.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just what you have to do. You can play around it to a certain extent, but at some point you have to realize my only win condition is going to be to completely ignore it. Oh, that Angry Chicken.
Yeah, he's got the dream.
Yeah.
The Houndmastered Angry Chicken.
Yeah,
you go ahead and deal that appointed damage and see what happens.
Yeah. How do you make a chicken angrier? You put a leash on it, apparently.
But you know what's funny is that actually now dealing an appointed damage may be slightly beneficial because he drew big game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. How often have you seen an angry chicken get BGH'd?
Yeah.
Not very often.
When it's Houndmaster, it's Angrier Chicken.
Angrier Chicken, yeah. All right, so how does Bloodyface deal with this? He does have the full 10 mana, so Force of Nature Swipe is an option. He still has not checked into this trap yet.
Yeah,
so he doesn't know what it is.
He doesn't know what this trap quite is yet, and you can see Force of Nature was the first thing he reached for. His instinct, of course, is that this is Freezing Trap. It's by far the most popular one at this stage, I think. It's one of those ones that's going to be great against the kinds of builds that players are playing also. So it's just very commonly found. Even when there are other traps, Freezing Trap is usually in the mix. So he's going to check for that first, but you know, fortunately for him, he's got 10 mana. You know, if he had 9 mana, this could have actually punished him a little bit in this situation. But he's going to be able to swipe anyway, so this board is going to get cleaned up perfectly for Bloodyface.
Yeah, to be honest, with 10 mana, all 3, well, I guess you have to counter and Bear Trap, all 4 traps are checked the same way, by Force of Naturing and attacking one hit. Because no matter what, you're going to be able to tell. And now he...
Wow, actually a little bit, I think, of a misstep, because he could attacked in one of the trees. The swipe would have cleaned up that Angry Chicken.
Yeah, he could have pushed in a little bit more damage.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too quick, but, I mean, what a dead draw Trump just pulled. Web Spinner is not going to deal 13 points of damage.
I mean, if you get a King Crush, it might be able to deal 8, but a turn delayed. And Bloodyface holding that Trump card.
Yep.
The Harrison Jones.
Wow, this is actually funny. Do you silence that web spinner to shut off all those kinds of possibilities?
I mean, you're
Is there a world?
You're staring at lethal pretty much next turn regardless. So you might. That would be the time where I would think about it more than any other time. But it looks like he's going to value the draw over it. And, I mean, either way, this is looking grim for Trump. I don't think there's anything that he can draw that's going to take him out of this.
Yeah, it's going to take something massive to get him out of this point. Core Rager, not quite enough.
I mean, you can finally get the buff from Core Rager.
I tell you what, though, freezing trap back behind it. You know, if this was a 6-7 instead,
yeah,
we'd be looking at a game here. Bloodyface has got the big game hunter already.
Yeah, the situation is another reason why players don't put Core Rager in their decks. Because even in the ideal situation, when your hand is empty and you play it, it's a 7-7, and it gets BGH.
Yeah. I think Trump needed the damage too much. I don't think there's a way to justify making it a 4-4 instead to play around this. I think he's got to go for it. You know, he's got very few cards that deal direct damage left in his deck, and this Ancient Allure healing Bloodyface up to 16, I think that's going to lock this one up.
Yeah, and again, nothing's going to bring him out of this one. Gets a Knife Juggler off the top. That's not going to be enough to contest this, and Bloodyface gives up to a 2-0 lead.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like so far these series have been a little bit one-sided. It feels like every time I cast, there's a theme to the way the matches go.
Yeah.
I hosted the first day of these events on my channel, and we had all the matches go to 5 games.
Yeah, it was a long day.
Yeah, it was a long day. And a lot of the tournaments I've done, a lot of 5-game sets, a lot of 3-0 sets. You know, maybe today's looking like one of those days.
Yeah, you look at the schedule and you're like, whoa, 8 matches. I'm either out of here by 5 or I'm out of here by 10 a.m. tomorrow. So it definitely is a theme, and we'll have to see how these matches are going to go, but Bloodyface in this match is definitely off to a great start. He's got 3 opportunities now to find a win with this Warlock deck, this Demon Handlock.
Yeah, that's really going to be the big talking point here. Can he finish off Trump in just one of the next 3 games? You know, Trump's not completely out of it yet, but he's going to have to be on point. His draws are going to have to be fantastic if he's going to take on that big task, because that's one of the most powerful decks that's out there right now.
Yeah, another theme to sort of look at is these players that have buys are the ones that are sort of struggling. We saw Zalay in the first matchup of the day, and now Trump, who was the other player who got a buy based on his World Championship board seeding, he's down 2-0. So the players that are coming through from the last chance or from the lower seeds of points that had to fight their way through the round of 64 are the ones who are coming in here and showing these seeded guys who's boss.
Yeah, I mean, it's no joke. I mean, you just look at how many millions of Hearthstone players there are. The fact that we're down to just this handful left that's going to be finding their spots in the Americas, that's all you're going to get at this point is talent.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I was looking over the points list last night, and pretty much all these players are very, very close. There wasn't even many players who have gotten to this stage yet who came from like the last chance that were like really low in points. The lowest seed coming into this, and he's the lowest seed by far, was Strelzik, who came in as the 100th seed. He had the 100 most BlizzCon points. And the next person is Lucchesi, who is 22nd. So from 22nd to 1, that's like 16 players are all packed in there with how these points went. So it's pretty cool how that turned out.
Yeah, another hand for Trump that's looking like it starts out pretty decent, but Bloodyface, his draws have just been on point.
Wow.
It's got turn 1 Zombie Chow. I think Ironbeak Owl is even a card he could potentially keep in this matchup.
Yeah.
Given how he played against that Haunted Creeper, I suspect he's going to keep it.
Yeah. Against Midrange Hunter, Ironbeak Owl is the turn 2 drop because what do Midrange Hunters play on turn 2? They play Mad Scientist, Knife Juggler, Haunted Creeper. Knife Juggler or Ironbeak Owl trades with all 3 of those. So
yeah.
It's a fantastic card in this matchup, and one of the best things that you can hope for going into a slower handlock, whether it be Demon or traditional, against Midrange Hunter, because it is a traditionally poor matchup for the handlock player.
Hit the nail right on the head with that one. Poor matchup indeed. So, you know, just because the opening hands look favored for one player or the other, not always how this matchup rolls out. Hunter's just got a lot of pressure to put on these minions. You know, you take a look at Mountain Giant, a lot of investment goes into getting that guy out. You know, a single kill command can turn around a lot of that power and health that you get on the board for that investment. So not always the easiest card to play in this matchup. Very happy to see him mulligan it. Molten Giant is a much more important card.
Yeah.
And that's really the driving force of this matchup, is how well Trump can balance his damage versus the minions that Bloodyface is going to be playing and Bloodyface's face.
Yeah, handlock is interesting to me in the fact that against faster decks, you spend the whole game playing defensively. Even when you're sort of playing offensively, like when you're putting out your Molten Giants, They're also just there for defensive tools also to like taunt them up. And it's a pretty interesting matchup where you're always on the edge of your seat as the handlock player. Like, oh man, if he has a quick shot, I'm dead. If he has a kill command, I'm packing it up.
It always comes down to those last few points of damage.
Yeah.
And so Bloodyface, a couple of interesting options this turn. I imagine it's going to be Iron Beak Owl and this Mad Scientist. But now, are you attacking the Beast or are you attacking the 2/2?
It's a tough thing, but going in on a turn 3, knowing Trump doesn't have the coin, you could probably afford to get rid of the higher attack damage, but I mean, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Whatever he wants to trade into, he's going to trade into anyway. If you trade in the Mad Scientist, you're left with 2/2/1, so he gets his choice. If you trade into the Web Spinner, you're left with a 2/1 and a 2/2. So either way, you're going to be left with like a 2/1 on the board at the end of the day.
So just going to take his time. You know, maybe he doesn't want to silence this turn. Maybe he's got other plans.
Maybe he wants to attack into the Web Spinner and then Dark Bomb, so that way he can pop the trap with his Zombie Child the next turn and still save the Owl for something more important later on.
I think that's a totally reasonable play as well.
But he does decide to go with the Iron Beak Owl.
And so this is the kind of situation that Trump wasn't looking forward to. Was turn 1 Zombie Chow, turn 2 Iron Beak Owl. Again, he was looking for a little bit easier game where maybe Bloodyface has to life tap a couple times and his minions have free reign on the board. But now he's found himself in this position. How does he get out of it? Gazrilla, it's a little bit too high costed for now. I think he's looking for something a little bit cheaper. And if it's always Huffer, that's usually a good thing, but not when you're staring down an Iron Beak Owl.
No, that Iron Beak Owl is going to be very, very happy to trade into this this Huffer.
That guy's pulled a lot of weight this game.
He has, yeah. The best case scenarios as the Hunter player in this matchup is when you're not playing against the Warlock player, you're just playing against that number 30, that 30 health pool. You really just, you curve out nicely, 1, 2, 3, he's just tapping, you're watching his life total go down, and you basically just plan out, what's the fastest way I can deal 30 damage?
Face is the place.
Yeah, but this game is not going to be one of those because Bloodyface definitely had some great tools to fight back early on.
Copy of Tracking in Trump's deck. This is a card we haven't seen too much of in the past. And so you can take a look. He's going to be able to choose one of these 3 cards, and it's going to be whichever one is best. And Trump's certainly going to take his time if he's got this kind of option.
Yeah. We can't see the cards. We're left in the dark here. What's Trump going to choose? Card 1 definitely has some merit. Card 2, though,
this is like
that could come in handy.
It's like Let's Make a Deal.
Yeah.
You know, where like you have a certain option, and you're like, but do you want to trade it in for what's behind door number 2?
Yeah.
Trump's going to choose the envelope. Eagle Horn Bow was in that envelope as well. Great choice for him.
Yeah, and we do want to point out that one of the cards was Dr. Boom, I got word of. So no Dr. Boom left in the deck. Of course, tracking the cards that you don't choose, they're out of there.
Yeah, they're discarded afterwards. But this is one of the reasons also why this matchup can be poor for the Warlock deck. Because it has to mulligan 4 of these early game cards, it means it doesn't always have these mid-game cards to play. And so you're seeing him force a life tap, and Antique Healbot's a great one to pick up. But this is a spot where Trump can capitalize on this position. His hand isn't built to do it, so this draw really important for him as well. But this is typically the kind of spot you find yourself in where the Hunter can make the most of this situation.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Because even if you draw into something like a Mountain Giant, after you mulligan for those early drops, you're usually using those early drops, so you don't really have the cards to reduce the mana cost of the Mountain Giant enough to be able to play it on a reasonable curve. So, again, that's why you find yourself in those positions. He does have something to play here. It is the heal bot, but if you want to play the heal bot that early, it just dies to the Eagle Horn Bow. You're getting further away from that Molten Giant, which is one of the threats that you have in your hand. You do have Coin Dr. Boom for the next turn, which is pretty enticing.
Is turn 6 Dr. Boom good, TJ?
I think so.
I think it's pretty darn good. I look at this hand and I wonder, how important is that Molten Giant for Bloodyface's game plan? Sure, he would love to play it and then put an Antique Healbot down afterwards. But if he gets low enough and he gets that 9-mana point, he can play Molten Giant and Mal'Ganis in the same turn. And that's going to accomplish a similar style effect. Of course, it costs you a lot of mana to do that. But I look at this position and I wonder, is Trump going to be able to handle you being at 29 and playing a Dr. Boom on turn 6?
Yeah, and that's a big deal. I mean, if he didn't have a Dr. Boom, if he didn't have a big creature to play next turn, that could have been a different story because you want to get further into your deck. The value of Molten Giant plus Healbot later on, or Molten Giant plus Mal'Ganis, as you mentioned later on, gets higher in value. But now I do agree with the play that he went here because just paves the way.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, too. Had he not had that big drop in his hand, you would have been seeing him take a different game plan. And this is really the beauty of this game, is how one single card can change everything.
Yeah.
Like, take a look. Say it was Lotheb instead of that Dr. Boom in his hand. You would have likely seen that Lotheb instead.
Yeah. Or say that was like second Iron Beak Owl. He probably would have just tapped, maybe look for a Twilight Drake, maybe just play the Owl, tap into nothing. So it's definitely that Dr. Boom really paved the way for his turn. And, I mean, he gave us the impression that he was thinking about that turn, but come on.
Well, he still might have been that Piloted Shredder. You take a look at double Hellfire. Suddenly some considerations for maybe going back-to-back Hellfire turns and then being able to play the Molten Giant, a really big one. But here's a big key to this game. When you've started to go down a path, unless you have a really big reason to deviate off that path, you need to follow through on it. And this is something you can see a lot of times from players who maybe are a little bit less experienced. They'll deviate from that, and they'll fall into a trap. Bloodyface isn't going to fall into that trap. He's following through on his game plan. This is one of the reasons you're seeing this guy in this spot.
Yeah, for sure. And we can look at the other side for Trump here. His game plan is not really going how he would have hoped. He had the great early curve, and he's thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to get off to an early start. Yeah, it sort of backfired a little bit just because.
That's a backfire as well.
Wow.
You can tell. Just look at Trump once again. Everything seems to just be not going his way. He's been having to play defense on decks that he wants to be using to drive the action. This Unstable Ghoul shutting off his 1 health minions. This is borderline disaster.
Yeah. And this could be a little bit of a tough turn here for Bloodyface. How he manages to go about this. Because there's a potential full clear in here.
Oh, yeah.
A potential.
I see where you're going with this, too.
Yeah. So if he Hellfires, I mean, he kills off his Dark Bombs because he can't, or his Boombots, sorry, because he can't attack in with them. What he can do is Dark Bomb the Savannah High main, then Hellfire. No, because the Savannah High was played second, so the Death Rider will go off second.
So
the
here's
best
what
way
you
is just
can
to
do.
Hellfire first.
Run in a Boombot.
Okay.
Hope that it hits that Savannah High main. And then go from there.
Okay.
This also works as well. This is actually really smart for Bloodyface, too, because all he needs is one of these Boombots to take that out. He misses it, though, and staring down a 6-1 Savannah High main, that's really the position you don't want to be in. So if both those Boombots had hit that Savannah High main and been able to deal it 4 points of damage, you'd be finding himself Hellfire and clear this board. Instead, got to leave a 6-1 on the table.
Yeah, to be honest, I kind of like the, if he had Hellfired first, because then you're more likely to kill off the Savannah High main, and then you can Dark Bomb down one of the 2/2s that
Look to
come
hedge
out.
your bets. You're kind of looking at not full clear, but clear as much as you can.
Yeah. He was definitely hoping for the full clear there.
Well, I can tell you
Oh,
what.
man.
He was also hoping that there wasn't a Gozrilla in Trump's hand, but there was, and now he's in trouble.
Yeah. Double Hellfire
We'll clear
the board, yeah. So he will have to throw in his Lotheb into the Gozrilla. And that's pretty dangerous. You bring yourself, I guess not really. I mean, you bring yourself down to 14 health, which is really not that bad.
Whoa, let's be careful here, Bloodyface. Let's be careful with this Lotheb attack. You don't want to do anything you're going to regret.
If he had made that attack into high main, that Gozrilla would have just been out of control.
Okay, so here's what I'm looking at with this spot. Bloodyface, I think, very much sees this double Hellfire play. The problem is Trump's going into 9 mana. You're going to be at 14, and he's going to be the one playing the minion right now. So you're rolling into your turn. You don't have a ton of clean plays. You don't have a lot of recovery left after that. You don't have a way to heal yourself. Is this a way to win the game? How does he actually win the game in this spot? And that's what's given him such a tough time about this. He's got to figure out how he's actually going to win. And maybe that means pushing damage into Trump's face.
Wow. That is very bold. And I guess this sort of pushes the onus on Trump here to sort of play defensively, but why should he? He's got a Gozrilla on the board. He can Houndmaster that.
Yeah, I think actually he might have lethal. He might have lethal here. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Looks like 20 points of damage to me, TJ.
All right. Well, looks like it's going to do it. Trump looks like he spots it with the Unleash the Hounds.
Yeah, that's going to do it. Trump is going to put his first win on the board in this match, and maybe now the beginning of this reverse comeback. Even despite the fact that Trump was playing defense almost this entire game, one small window of opportunity was just enough for him to make the most of it.
Yeah, the Gozrilla was sort of payback for all of the bad things that Trump has been getting from like Powder Shredders so far in this series. So definitely finally getting a little bit of swing of good fortune from that web spinner is definitely going to help him out in this match.
Yeah, Bloodyface was the city versus Godzilla in this instance. I mean, there's no similarity between those two stories whatsoever.
Not at all.
But yeah, this is all on the back of a card like Web Spinner, and I love seeing this card in competitive play. It forces players to adapt to these kinds of circumstances, make the most of what they're given. You know, this is a spot where Bloodyface really couldn't have anticipated this Godzilla happening. And in the beginning stage of that game, it looked like that card wasn't going to be any use to Trump. He found a way to make use of this card. It ended up being the reason he won the game.
Yeah, and that whole turn was a swing turn. The Godzilla being played, and then Bloodyface making the decision to go for the aggressive line, going for the win instead of the not lose situation. He did have a full clear there with the double Hellfire, but he would have given up initiative and put himself at pretty low health, especially going up against the Hunter, who is not really short on cards. So
yeah, I actually kind of like that he's going for it there. I think it's one of the ways that you're just going to have to make the most of it. You know, even though you don't win a large percentage of the time, do you win more than you would have the other way? And I don't really know. It's tough to say one way or the other. He's the one that's sitting in the seat, and he's the one that's got to figure it out, though. And maybe that's the reason we're going to game number 4.
Yeah, Bloodyface was 2-0 up. Bloodyface seems like a pretty bloodthirsty name to me. So I'm not surprised he went for the aggressive line, seeing the victory in his sights there. But now we are going to move on here. Bloodyface just has to find a win with that Warlock. That's all he has to do.
Yeah, here's the problem. Druid is very oftentimes performing fantastic versus some of these Warlock decks. And Trump's got a Warlock of his own in this one. So if Bloodyface is really going to win this matchup, he's either going to have to win a match where he's not favored, or he's going to have to take on a mirror versus one of the most established professionals in the scene.
Yeah, which is a very intimidating thing to do. All right, Bloodyface, once again, has to throw out this Warlock, and Trump is going to throw out that Druid. Doesn't want to have to go to that mirror matchup if he doesn't have to.
And you take a look at Trump, you can see the gravity of this situation starting to weigh in a little bit.
Yeah.
I can tell you, if there's a player who really wants to win this championship, Trump is one of them.
Yeah, there's no Trump subs on that board today.
Stings a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That shows that he's really working hard, though. And that's not a good hand for a Druid. Not a good hand. He definitely wants to see those Darnassus Aspirants, those Wild Growths. Whereas, on the other hand, Bloodyface, Void Caller in your opening hand against Druid, usually pretty good.
Yeah, that is one of the bigger threats, I'd say, in this matchup is it's not really the card itself that's the problem. It's the threat of what it brings.
Yeah.
And so that's something that is, I think, is pretty darn unique to a game like Hearthstone, where the range of what could happen is actually more frightening oftentimes than what actually happens.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. If you look at it just as a blank card, I mean, it's a 4-mana spider tank with a worse tribe. Some people are going to get mad at me for saying demons are worse than mechs, but come on.
E-Cop's going to get mad at you.
Yeah, very true.
Wow, look at these opening hands from these guys, too. Trump's got 2 copies of Darnassus Aspirant. Bloodyface has got a copy of Dark Bomb in his hand, though. And look at that. Right off the bat, Jiraxis and Mal'Ganis for that Void Caller.
Yeah, this is looking a little bit like the series we saw earlier with Zelay versus Purple, where you had both Void Callers, Jiraxis, and Mal'Ganis' opening hand.
Able
Dangerously
to taunt them
close.
both up.
Yeah, really crazy.
Wow, even has the second Dark Bomb for the second Aspirant. Bloodyface, everything going his way so far this game.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting to me is the evolution of how Handlock players or Demon Lock players play against Druid. In the past, Druids would mulligan away Dark Bomb sometimes, just because the only threat that you'd meet for Dark Bomb to kill would be like the first iteration of a Paladin Shredder.
Wow, look at
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I wanted to say great point that you made, but we are getting some huge
forget
draws
about it. Yeah.
on Bloodyface's side. And look at his hand. You obviously you want to kill that Aspirant, but I can tell you, coin into Void Caller into turn 4 Void Caller, that's looking mighty tempting right now.
Yeah, you would be afraid of, say, he's going into 5 mana with the Aspirant on the board, so you're saying, well, I don't really want to have to deal with a Druid of the Claw, or I don't really want to have to deal with a Loatheb, but that's a pretty scary thing to deal with double Void Caller.
Yep.
He does decide to go for the Dark Bomb option, but the Void Callers are still waiting in the wings.
Yeah, now the one downside to this is that he's got 2 anti-heal bots. Those aren't going to be very much use early on in this matchup, so a lot of life tap's going to have to come in after this, but this is going to be a matter, this isn't really on Bloodyface to handle this position right now. This is on Trump. Can you deal with a 315? Can you deal with a 9-7 Mal'Ganis?
Yeah. And the thing is, you mentioned it a little bit with the anti-kill bots. He doesn't really have much to back up these demons with. But Trump doesn't know that. Trump's thinking, oh man, Mal'Ganis and a Draxus on the board. If he was looking at Bloodyface's hand, he was saying, well, I can sort of just maybe ignore them for a turn or ignore the Void Callers for a turn. But at the end of the day, it's just like, can you really though?
It's that threat of power.
Yeah,
is what it really is. And so Trump is just going to have to play his best cards every single turn and really hope for the best. I think that this Druid of the Claw in taunt mode is a very good start.
Yeah. Also, look at Trump's hand. Emperor Thorson on 6. He's reducing both Force of Nature and Savage Roar. Now, not much other than that, because Innervate, of course, outside of Lothab, doesn't really have any effect when it's reduced by Thorson.
It's already got a negative mana cost.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Depending on what he picks up next turn, that could be a really big Emperor Thorson and could allow Trump to close out the game as early as turn 7.
Yeah, this is Bloodyface, though. I don't think he's feeling too comfortable about this position. You know, he plays second Void Caller, runs his Void Caller in. You know, so he's still staring down 8 points of damage right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and go for it. Mal'Ganis comes to the board. He is a turtle, by the way, for those of you who didn't know. And Trump, you know, does have a pretty easy answer to what's happening right now. And with that Keeper of the Grove pickup, he may be able to stabilize this game now.
Yeah, that's true. Also, he can combo next turn because he has the Innervate. Even without Thorsan, he can combo next turn. So if he finds a way to deal with this Mal'Ganis in a pretty efficient way, he can start looking at closing the game as early as next turn.
Yeah, I think he's definitely thinking about using some of these combo pieces. What's the downside of these? What's the upside of them?
Yeah.
I think he's going to conclude that hanging on to this 14 pocket damage is probably the best play. And I think I would totally agree with that because he's just got such clean attacks right now. You know, I say clean attacks, you know, killing a 9/7 that came into play for free, not really clean, I would say, but something he's certainly happy to do. And then after that, every single turn that Bloodyface doesn't have the board checked, there's that threat of the big damage.
Yeah. So a way to remove this would be to use the Keeper, Hero Power, take the 8 damage.
I think he's going upstairs if he's doing it this way. Yeah. Trump is going for the dome. He's looking to make his face bloody right now. He's leaving a 9/7 on board. And that Jiraxis, that's not going to help Bloodyface stay in this game. He's got to handle all these minions on board.
Yeah, now this is where the heal bots actually do help him out because he does have a decent board to be able to contest here. He really just has to heal out of combo range until he draws into the Sunfigure Protectors, the Defender of Arguses, to really beef up these demons. Because right now he can throw in the Void Caller, bring out the Jiraxis, then maybe play an antique heal bot. The only thing that would be left on the board after that would probably be a Piloted Shredder, I'd imagine he would leave up.
I mean, he's got to actually use this Mal'Ganis to start killing some of these minions, too.
Mal'Ganis is not like that.
No, Mal'Ganis does not. He's only got 7 health.
Yeah.
It's like a cat.
Yeah. If all of his lives only had 1 health, those are really weak cats. He's really thinking this through, though.
It's funny, he's actually got the same health as the turtle, too.
He does.
Yeah.
Wow. Blizzard's trying to tell us something. We need to get Robert back up here to get in on this.
Yeah, so Bloodyface running out of time. You know, I think this definitely is the play. But if he disrespects these couple of minions that are on board, you know, I don't put it past him. You know, you look at this position, you go, oh, he's just got to generate Force Nature and Savage Roar. He's only got 4 cards in hand.
Yeah.
Reads the situation beautifully, and Trump picks up Big Game Hunter to go with this. He's got to be concerned with taunts next turn, though.
The Big Game Hunter, 1 turn too late, but it's still going to find its mark. The question is whether or not he feels it's necessary to use it. I mean, Mal'Ganis is still at 5 health, but you also have to keep in the back of your mind, eventually I'm going to meet Molten Giants, but with the Druid is one of those classes where you can sort of float the Warlock right out of Molten Giant range, but still keep them in range of you being able to kill them.
And that's exactly what he's looking to do. Big Game Hunter just wants that extra threat out. 4 more damage getting pushed, and with that Emperor Thorson, it doesn't matter that he just used that Innervate. He still has Force Nature Savage Roar next turn.
Yes, he does. And this, okay, so Antique Heal Bot would bring him back up to 29. He could take off the Piloted Shredder, at least the first iteration, and he could take off the Big Game Hunter. He would be safe from just about every combination of spells that you could think of that were reduced by Emperor Thorson for 1 turn. The best case scenario would be exactly what he has, is 1 Force of Nature and 1 Savage Roar. So you can factor in that's worst case scenario.
There are so many nightmare drops from that Piloted Shredder, though.
Yeah.
So he's going to life tap first. I don't blame him for this. And Defender of Argus Wow, what a huge draw for Bloodyface in this spot. He's got to be feeling good about his spot now.
Oh, yeah. So now it's the question of, do I heal now with taunt later? Which he's going to check first.
I think I totally like the heal now, taunt later, and I think he's totally comfortable with that given the fact that he's at this life total. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he still does taunt because actually 14 plus 6 is still 24 points of damage. So it's looking like, wow, that's not the right one. And Trump is going to steal this game.
Wow.
Bloodyface disrespects the Force of Nature Savage Roar, and Trump makes him pay the maximum price. Talk about value.
What a bold call from Bloodyface again to disrespect the worst case scenario.
Hey, man.
Twice in a row now.
Look, sometimes you got to go for it. And this is a situation, again, I don't really fault him for this. Trump has to have exactly Force of Nature Savage Roar. Take a look at these games. No matter what happens, at some point you're going to have to take a risk when you're playing against somebody who's playing as good as Trump is going to play. So because of that, he thought this was the turn to do it. He goes, you know what? If Trump doesn't have Force Nature Savage Roar, I'm going to easily recover this game. It's not even going to be close. Goes through that play, ends up getting punished for it. That's just going to happen sometimes.
And the question is, how does this weigh on Bloodyface's mind? You look at last turn. He really hesitated on playing that Twilight Drake. He was not all in on that play. He moused over the Defender Vargas, moused over the Anti-Kill Bot, moused over the Twilight Drake, and then he's just like, okay, Twilight Drake, and then boom, punish instantly. And that's twice in a row that sort of happened where he didn't really know what the best line was, and then he went with the greedy play, and he was punished for it both times. So how does that play into your psyche? You're thinking, well, next game, I'm just going to play safe.
Yeah, well, that's really the big thing here, too, is the momentum now really on Trump's side of things. And you just mentioned it. Is he going to be second-guessing himself at some points now? And I think this is a spot where he's really got to avoid that. You know, his play and his solid, consistent, maybe the risks that he usually takes. You know, we don't know exactly how this guy plays. Watching him play this way, I imagine he does take some good risks in his games. That's what's gotten him to this stage right now. Why change that?
Yeah, Hearthstone as a competition, it's all in the mind. If you don't have a healthy mind, then you're not going to really go places when it comes to tournaments like this. Bloodyface, he has proven over and over again that he's a good player, making it this far, having a lot of BlizzCon points, making it up to this stage in the tournament. This is not the point in your career or whatever to start second-guessing your actions because they got you this far. So
yeah, but when you're sitting across the table from a guy like Trump, you know, maybe this is the time you do second-guess yourself.
Yeah, it's a good thing Trump's not wearing his Trump face shirt because that would just be flat-out intimidating.
Yeah. Definitely a few subs have that shirt. Yeah, I was actually looking at that. That's a good-looking shirt. You know that?
It's a really good-looking shirt.
Yeah.
Especially because it looks exactly like him. So you don't know when you're looking at the real Trump. All right, mirror matchup time.
Yeah, this is really the one that I think is going to be the most difficult for both of these guys at this point. Trump, however, has seen a lot more Bloodyface's build than Bloodyface has seen at Trump so far.
It's very true.
And I think that's what's going to end up being a big factor in this game. Trump kind of has a better idea of what to do.
Yeah, for sure. There also could be some argument towards, well, Bloodyface has played the deck twice in a row now, so he's comfortable with his own deck. So he's going to be knowing his own deck a little bit better, feeling it out.
He's warmed up.
He's warmed up, yeah. It's a good way to put it. So I am just excited to see this. This is a second match of the day. You thought there was going to be a little theme when we saw the 2-0 to start, but I'm glad to see Game 5.
Yeah, I'm always happy to see a Game 5. That's just what I want. I just want more Hearthstone, man.
For sure.
It's the only thing I ever want in my life is more Hearthstone.
Yeah, if only I could have like a laptop and a tablet open and playing Hearthstone
while you're on your
casting
phone.
Hearthstone.
While you're on your phone with
it. While I'm on my phone playing Hearthstone. While I'm buying Amazon card packs. Wow.
That's actually a good deal, by the way. I'm actually probably going to do that because I'm missing a couple gold legendaries that I really want.
Oh, whoa. The Golden Confessor Peltress. You need that?
I'm not much of a priest player, but you know what? I'm going to make one just for you, TJ.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it. It's a beautiful golden card, but looks like we're jumping in a match here. Both players have a Void Call early on, but other than that, very different hands.
Yeah, so Bloodyface, really, his threat is the Twilight Drake, which you're not always happy to see because of Ironbeak Owl being such a prominent card in this matchup. Sylvanas has really fallen out of favor as well, so players a little bit more likely to use that Ironbeak Owl when they see this Twilight Drake. Trump's got the Mountain Giant, but Bloodyface has the Big Game Hunter in his hand. And this is really why this matchup is so difficult, is because of these kinds of swing cards. You got to tip your way around. It's more of a chess match than anything else.
Yeah, it's definitely back and forth, and there can be some games where one player has the Mountain Giant and the other player has the 8 health Twilight Drake, in which case the game can be blown out a little bit. But this looks like one of those matches where it's going to be very back and forth, very chess match-esque, like you mentioned there.
Yeah, so Bloodyface at this point, you know, once again, he's got the Mal'Ganis in his hand. So is he going to favor the Void Caller here, or is he going to favor the Twilight Drake?
It's tough. Both are vulnerable to the Iron Beak Owl. Both are vulnerable to the Silence. But which one are you happier to get silenced if that's the case?
That's a big question. And honestly, I don't know in this spot. I think with Mal'Ganis in your hand, you actually might be happier to see the Twilight Drake, but that's a lot of health to be losing.
Yeah, Twilight Drake also contests a non-Iron Beak Owl board a little bit better than the Void Caller does by itself. Of course, you have to mention the implications of what the Void Caller is going to spawn out of it afterwards, but it gives your opponent like a turn to react to it. Yeah. So really thinking this through.
It's a tough turn.
Yeah.
I don't blame him at all for this. You know, these are two wildly different lines that end up happening. You know, you look at the game 3 or 4 turns later, you know, what happens? It's a tough one to figure out. He's going to go with Void Caller, though, and this doesn't surprise me. Bloodyface all match long has been taking these bigger risks. Why stop?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is that little bit of a riskier play, considering the fact that he does have a big demon in his hand, because he definitely wants to sort of cheat that out of there. And he does have the big game hunter to line up with the Mountain Giant.
Yeah, and this is really, I think, part of the reason why he wanted to take this risk is that in a situation like this, it's paying off in spades. He's been able to have 7 power on board. He's going to be able to have multiple minions on board. He still has the threat of the Void Caller activation. It looks to me like everything's going to roll his way.
Yeah, he's thinking it over, but I don't think the Twilight Drake is really an option. If he had 9 cards, maybe, because then all of a sudden your Twilight Drake's 9 health, and maybe you can find a way to contest the Mountain Giant without having to use the big game hunter, so you can save it for later. But the board position is good, and putting out an 8 health Twilight Drake to match up against an 8 damage Mountain Giant is not really something that you want to do.
So now Trump has seen this big game hunter. I got to believe he feels safe playing this other Mountain Giant. At this point, just hoping that Bloodyface is going to have to put his minions into this Mountain Giant.
Yeah.
Invest it that way, and then see what happens afterwards. He's going to get some bad news from this Void Caller, and it is mighty bad news. Trump has no way to kill that 9/7.
No. Now, Bloodyface doesn't know it, but I don't think you really can afford to sort of play around everything.
And that's the big point, is that Bloodyface doesn't know what's in Trump's hand right now. And so this has been kind of a sub-theme of this whole match, is the threat of what's on that other side.
Yeah.
If he could see Trump's hand, this would be an instantaneous play from Bloodyface. But when you're looking at 9 cards in the other guy's hand, you got to worry what's there.
Yeah. So in that case, it's not like a chess match. Because at chess, you can see your opponent's pieces.
Did you ever play the chess where the pieces were backwards?
No, I didn't.
And you could
Wait, how were they backwards?
Okay, so you could like bluff with the pieces, but when you bluffed, your opponent could call you out on the bluff. And if they were right, they got to pick one of your pieces off the board, and they could just actually hit your king with that too. But if they called you out on the bluff and they were wrong, the person who wasn't bluffing got to pick your piece off the board.
Was it like pirate chess? Is that what it is?
It was crazy. It was an interesting game to be seeing play, but Bloodyface, he's just going to go upstairs with this damage. Doesn't go with the Void Caller attack, though. He just wants to force Trump to make an attack on his terms.
Yeah.
And then follow up with it afterwards. So this is a really interesting maneuver from Bloodyface, and kind of what we were referring to with the chess match of this. A lot of different things can happen if he pushes too much damage.
Yeah.
Because of Molten Giant. So he doesn't want to push too much, wants to be right in that sweet spot.
Yeah, you don't want to go too aggressive. And I mean, right now, Bloodyface actually does have quite a bit of burn in his hand. He's got 6 points of burn from spells alone with Hellfire Dark Bomb. And if Trump doesn't respect the Void Caller enough, then he might be put into a situation where he gets killed next turn. All of a sudden, Mal'Ganis hits face. All he needs to piece together is 2 more damage plus the spells he has from his hand. And all of a sudden, he's got himself a lethal. So now this is a tough turn for Trump as well. He's got to figure out how to maneuver this while also building up his own board to contest whatever Bloodyface is going to throw out next turn.
Tough stuff.
Emperor Thorsan could be a little bit risky to play. You're reducing all your cards, but then you're sort of putting the initiative onto Bloodyface here. But he realizes that his hand is just so big right now. He's getting so much value out of this Thorsan.
Wow, and Bloodyface so close to lethal with his hand. He is 2 damage off right now.
Wow. If Trump had tapped and played like Twilight Drake, then he'd be dead.
It'd be over.
Crazy. And Mal'Ganis still looming. There's not really too there is clean ways to deal with this. You can like throw the BGH into the Mountain Giant and then trade in your other 2 creatures into Emperor Thaurissan, bringing out your Mal'Ganis, and then like you can fit in a tap and play Twilight Drake.
Yeah, I think the big point of this is that Bloodyface has clearly been fearful of something from Trump to deal with this Mal'Ganis. He doesn't want to just give it away, so to speak. So because of that, he's been tiptoeing his way around, and that's actually been giving Trump the time he needs to kind of recover in this game. So this has been kind of a blessing in disguise. I actually like the way that Bloodyface has been playing this game. It's just kind of unfortunate that Trump happens to have the hand he does, which is allowing him to find this extra time and really make the most of it.
Yeah. So big thing here, Bloodyface, his Void Caller pulled out the second Void Caller.
Yeah.
So that is, he probably wanted the power on the board, but at the same time, Trump's tapped a lot so far this game. The likelihood that he has an answer is getting higher and higher as the game progresses. But it also might be a good thing because Trump might think, well, I mean, that might have been his only demon if the Void Caller pulled out a second Void Caller.
Especially with how careful he's been playing with it, too. You know, it's actually kind of an interesting message that's being sent because of how careful he's been playing. And maybe giving Trump the wrong impression.
Yeah. Well, now all of a sudden, Trump is the one with the bigger board. He's got the Twilight Drake Void Caller, but no demon in his hand just yet. But once again, Bloodyface does not know that. It's always a scary thing to go up against.
Just difficult turns to navigate. And this is what this matchup is all about. It's just tough turn after tough turn after tough turn. And this is part of what makes these guys winning players. Is that despite all that what's happening right now and how difficult it is and what their decisions mean, they're able to consistently make ones that end up in their favor.
Yeah. Bloodyface does have a pretty large health advantage, so he can afford to, I don't want to really say riskier because all of his plays have a slight amount of risk, I suppose, but he can really just play his biggest stuff every turn. And Dr. Boom with the Boom bots, a little bit bigger than the Mountain. Like a tap mountain.
Yeah, that's what that's, oh goodness, that is a huge draw from Trump right now.
Off the top.
Wow, I mean, that's a game changer. We're gonna have to take our times with this one, boys, because suddenly the world of possibilities has just been opened.
Yeah. The big thing here is that Trump wants to find a demon. If he finds a demon, his hand just comes together. Because then the Boombots have a potential to hit the Void Caller, bringing out a demon. He could BGH the Dr. Boom and just have a full swing in effect. The only thing that's still playing in the back of his head is that Void Caller could still pull out another demon. That thing's not silenced. He does have to take into account what that thing could bring out. It looks like he's going to test the waters first by seeing where this first Boombot goes.
There's that demon.
Digging in. There it is. Wow. All right. Well, Boombot hits not the best, but they both went on to the Twilight Drake. He probably would have hoped that they would both go on to the Void Caller, killing it, pulling out Draxus.
Wow, he's not going to check the demon first. That means he's actually just going forward to the face.
Okay, pushing some damage.
Another aggressive play from Trump. He continues. Trump's been finding spots to really look at ways to actually kind of go for it. And this is something I feel like he wasn't doing a year ago. Trump was always focused on value, but now Trump is looking for spots to actually put his opponents in uncomfortable situations where they look at what's happening going, is Trump going to kill me next turn?
Yeah.
And that puts a lot of pressure on you as a player to have to navigate through that kind of circumstance, especially when they've got 8 cards in their hand.
Yeah, Trump's just a wild guy. He's unpredictable. You never know with him. Yeah, he's a loose cannon.
Yeah. He's living that Bay life.
Yeah, he is.
Yep.
He is. That's for sure. All right, let's take a look at Bloodyface's options here. He's at that point where if he starts pushing damage, he risks going into that Molten Giant range. He doesn't have Shadow Flame in his hand, so he doesn't really want to overextend, but at this point, his hand is just sort of playing into the maybe I should extend, like that Hellfire's calling his name.
Gosh.
Use me.
I don't know if playing around Molten Giants is really an option anymore. I mean, Trump's going to be able to make that happen on his own terms if he wants to. Yeah, you got to silence that Void Caller. It's just, I feel like it's just too dangerous at this point.
Yeah. Well, he goes for it, and out pops the Mal'Ganis. This is a scary board to look at. BGH is gone.
Checked, though. Trump has no Shadow Flame, though, so actually dealing with this board position, not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's actually got play with Hellfire where he can just put himself down low enough to be able to start playing Molten Giants.
You're absolutely right. Because it's dealing himself damage, he's going to be able to actually clear this whole board and play the 2 Molten Giants. I forgot that Hellfire was dealing him damage.
That is crazy. He could even afford to play the Dark Bomb as opposed to the second Hellfire. He's thinking about it. But right now, those Molten Giants cost 1 mana. So you can still play both of those while fitting in a Dark Bomb.
You can tell Trump's thinking about, can I squeeze in a life tap here?
Yeah. Can I get more value out of this turn?
Is there any way I could get more?
And, I mean, he could. He taps, he goes down to 10. His Molten Giants become free.
That's exactly what he's going to do, too. I like this play from Trump. You know what? When the cards are stacked in your favor, and you're looking for just maybe that one extra card to change this, like say he draws his Antique Healbot, say he draws Mal'Ganis.
Yeah.
Game's looking fantastic for him.
Yeah.
And look at this. 2 taunted Molten Giants now, and Bloodyface is at 22. How on earth is he going to deal with this?
Yeah, so Trump has 18 damage on the board with 3 in his hand. If Bloodyface taps, which he sort of has to, he has nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. That looks like it's going to be game over.
Is he going to Dark Bomb the Sun Fury Protector?
Maybe, if he can see. I mean, he has to. He's thinking, well, if Trump has 2 damage, if he has a Defender of Argus, then I'm dead if I don't Dark Bomb this. So
yeah.
I don't even see a card that Bloodyface can draw that's going to make this situation a little bit more bearable.
7 mana Twisting Nether.
Wow.
Yeah, Mountain Giant's not going to do it. And that's going to be it. Trump is going to reverse sweep Bloodyface. Cannot take a game with this Demon Handlock, and Trump is going to win this series 3-2. What a performance from Trump.
Really impressive. And you can see Trump is ecstatic after that one.
How could you not be? I mean,
yeah.
You were on the edge of defeat. It looked like nothing was going to go your way. Even in the very first game of this comeback, it looked like Trump was going to fall. He was playing defense with an aggressive build, able to keep his cool, picks up the right cards in the right spots, maybe gets a little bit lucky. 3-0 on the back.
He navigated that last mirror matchup really well, fitting in taps whenever he could, making sure that he was giving himself so many options every single turn. And, I mean, just a really impressive stuff by Trump, too, to keep his cool under the pressure of being down 2-0, coming in as the favorite, at least as far as the seeding goes. It's really impressive stuff by Trump. He's going to move on to the forward in the winners round, the winners bracket, or the upper end of the bracket to the round of 8 of that winners bracket. So he's getting closer.
Every single step is a big one to be taken. And for me, I look at this match and I think about the biggest, most pivotal moments. I have to say this is a spot where you could take a look at Bloodyface's play and go, is there anything he could have done differently? But I actually like the way that he was taking risks in this matchup, especially against a player of higher caliber. You're just going to have to do that at some point. They happen to not pay off for him, but look at the first couple of games.
Yeah.
Risks he was taking, paying off in spades.
Definitely. Very risky player. He's not out just yet. He will move down to the lower bracket. His matches will be put out either tomorrow or maybe a little bit later because since he made it to up the winners, he'll go down to the loser bracket in a pretty high position, or in the lower bracket in a pretty high position. So definitely look for them. The next matchup is actually going to be Fibonacci versus Jab. Now, I want to get your thoughts on that matchup.
Well, I'm loving the way that this matchup is looking out. Both these guys, big ladder warriors.
Yep.
Jab was at this situation. He made it a little bit further than this last year in Stage 2. Has been fantastic in his tournament performances lately. Fibonacci, really just kind of a ladder guy. And, not a big streamer, doesn't play in tournaments really, just kind of plays in ranked play. And, from my perspective and everyone I know and the way that we've talked to him, he's really very much known as one of the best, if not the best, control warrior player in the world.
Yeah, you look at the list of players, or the list of deck lists, Fibonacci's always at the top of control warrior. And actually, we have a slight correction. That matchup will take place after, but I'm glad I got your thoughts on it. Next match is actually going to be Phone Tap versus Muzzy. So another sort of similar matchup where Muzzy, who is actually a teammate of Jab's, I believe they're still...
And was a teammate of Phone Taps.
And was a teammate of Phone Taps, before Phone Tap moved on to Luminosity, I believe. So that should be an exciting one as well. I know you've had a chance to watch a lot of Muzzy's games.
Oh, yeah. With HPL taking place, 15 matches under his belt, as well as the Pinnacle event that he won. It was a pleasure to watch him through that. He actually qualified into that event and then won it afterwards.
Yeah.
And has been kind of making a tear in terms of, the tournament scene and really just his ladder play. Everything's been stepping up for him. And he's, I've talked to him a little bit, and he says for the most part he's kind of a relaxed guy, but when he's got a goal in mind, it's full steam ahead and nothing's going to stop him.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see how he does. But we are going to take a quick break before we jump into that next match between Phone Tap and Muzzy. But don't go anywhere, guys. More North American Qualifier Tournament action continues right after this.
Driving the action for Bloodyface, and this drop is so important right now. Once he gets down to those last few, it's going to be lights out for Trump. That is a game-changing card right now, and that's going to do it. Trump's going to scoop this game number 1. He was also hoping that there wasn't a Gazrilla in Trump's hand, but there was, and now he's in trouble. Yeah, that's going to do it. Trump is going to put his first win on the board in this match, and maybe now the beginning of this reverse comeback, and Trump is going to steal this game.
Wow.
And Trump is going to win this series 3-2. What a performance from Trump.